Welcome back to episode 7 of Humans Are Whack. If you've been following this series, you already know, just when you think humans can't get any dumber, someone out there proves us wrong. Before we jump in, thank you to everyone who's been watching, commenting, and sharing. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, drop a like, and tell us where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see how far the Humans Are Whack family reaches. Now, let's dive into today's episode. On our first story for today, it's one of those crimes so dumb, you almost feel sorry for the guy. The man who tried to rob a bank with his own paycheck. It happened in Ohio. A man walked into a bank, slipped the teller a note demanding cash, and threatened her not to call the police. Pretty standard for a bad heist attempt, until you hear what the note was written on. His own paycheck, with his name and address printed clearly at the top. After receiving a small amount of money, he fled, but it didn't take long for police to track him down. I mean, they literally had his home address in hand. When he was arrested, he reportedly said he didn't realize the note still had his personal information on it. That's when investigators knew this wasn't a mastermind. This was a man who tried to rob a bank using his own ID as a calling card. It's almost poetic. The only thing he successfully stole was his own future. And once again, we're reminded, crime doesn't pay, especially when you hand the cops your name. On our second story today, sometimes you hear a story so unbelievably dumb that you start to wonder, is this satire? But no, this one really happened. The woman who called the police to complain her drug dealer sold her baking soda instead of cocaine. It sounds like a bad joke, but it's a true police report. In Florida, where, let's be honest, some of the world's strangest news stories come from, a woman marched into a local police station holding a small plastic bag. She slammed it on the counter and demanded justice. The officer behind the desk looked up and asked what the problem was. She said, with absolute confidence, "I paid $50 for cocaine, and this guy ripped me off. He gave me baking soda." For a moment, the officer thought it was a prank. But no, she was deadly serious. She wanted the police to test the bag, to confirm she'd been scammed. Now, let's pause for a second. She wasn't upset that she tried to buy an illegal substance. She was upset that the deal was unfair. That's human logic for you. Outrage over injustice, even when you're committing one yourself. The police, trying to process what they'd just heard, obliged. They tested the cocaine, and yes, it was 100% baking soda. So, they arrested her on the spot for possession and attempting to purchase illegal drugs. The story quickly went viral, sparking one of the most absurd moral lessons of all time. If you're going to do something illegal, maybe don't involve the police in your customer service complaint. When reporters later asked her why she thought going to the police was a good idea, she reportedly said, "Because it's not fair to be scammed." And that, right there, is peak human behavior, demanding fairness in a situation where fairness was never part of the deal. It's almost poetic how far we'll go to justify our own foolishness. Because sometimes, the dumbest crimes aren't the ones that fail. They're the ones where people truly believe they're right. On our third story today, some crimes are evil, some are greedy, and then there are crimes that are so bizarre, they make you wonder if the criminal was just confused. The guy who broke into a house, cleaned it, and left a bill for his services. This strange case took place in Massachusetts, a quiet suburban neighborhood where one homeowner returned from work to find their house spotless. The floors were vacuumed, the dishes were washed, the beds were neatly made, even the bathroom sparkling. At first, the homeowner thought maybe a relative had stopped by to help out. But then they noticed something odd, a neatly folded note on the counter. It read, "Your house is clean. You're welcome. $75. The homeowner froze. This wasn't a gift. It was a bill, left by a man they'd never met. After checking security cameras, they discovered that a strange man had entered their house while they were gone, cleaned everything, and then calmly walked out. No theft, no damage, just unsolicited cleaning and an invoice. Police later identified the man. a local cleaner who claimed he had entered the wrong house by mistake. Apparently, he had been hired to clean a nearby home, but got the address mixed up. When he realized the homeowners weren't there, he figured, well, I'm already inside. Might as well do my job. And so he did. He cleaned for hours, then left his usual rate on a handwritten note, genuinely expecting payment. When questioned, he said, "Hey, I did the work. They got a clean house. Seems fair." The police didn't press charges. After all, it was one of the strangest non-crimes they'd ever seen. But the story went viral as a perfect example of how humans can be both law-abiding and law-breaking at the same time. It's like the universe glitched, a man breaking in to do chores. And if there's one takeaway here, it's this. Sometimes, being too professional can get you into trouble. Or maybe, just maybe, he's the hero we didn't know we needed, the cleaning bandit. On our fourth story today, there are bad ideas, and then there are volcanic-level bad ideas. The tourist who fell into Mount Vesuvius while taking a selfie. Now, Mount Vesuvius isn't just any mountain. It's one of the most dangerous volcanoes on Earth. The same volcano that wiped out Pompeii nearly 2,000 years ago. A place that commands respect and caution. But one tourist from the United States didn't get the memo. While visiting Italy, he decided that the best souvenir would be a selfie. Not from the visitor trail, not from a safe distance, but from the rim of the volcano itself. Ignoring warning signs and security barriers, he climbed over the restricted zone. At the edge of a massive crater filled with sulfur gas and heat rising from the Earth's core, he pulled out his phone. He raised it high, smiled, and lost his balance. In an instant, he slipped, tumbling several meters down the rocky slope inside the crater. By sheer luck, he didn't fall all the way in. Guides nearby spotted him and rushed to the rescue, pulling him out with ropes and sustaining minor injuries themselves. When local authorities asked why he'd ignored dozens of warning signs, he gave the most human answer possible. "I just wanted a good photo." That photo, of course, was lost in the fall, along with his dignity and almost his life. The irony? If he'd succeeded, that selfie would have probably gone viral. But instead, his story did. News outlets around the world ran with the headline, "Tourist falls into volcano while taking selfie." It practically wrote itself. In the end, he was fined for trespassing and, fortunately, lived to tell the tale. But it's a perfect reminder of our modern obsession, the need to document everything, even at the edge of death itself. Because in 2025, if it's not on camera, did it even happen? And maybe that's the scariest part. Humans are so addicted to attention that sometimes they'll risk becoming ash for a few likes. On our fifth story today, sometimes fate has a sense of humor. Because there are moments when crime doesn't just fail, it outsmarts itself. The thieves who stole a GPS tracker from the police. It happened in a small European town. A group of thieves decided to pull off what they thought would be a quick, easy job. Their target, a box they found inside a police warehouse. It was small, compact, and looked valuable. They had no idea what it was. They just knew it looked expensive. So, under the cover of night, they broke in, grabbed the box, and ran off. They must have been celebrating their perfect heist all the way home. But here's the catch. That box was actually a GPS tracking device. A real one, used by the police to track stolen property. So the moment they took it, they basically invited law enforcement to their location. Within minutes, officers were watching their every move, live, on a screen. They tracked the signal all the way to an apartment building across town, where the group was dividing up their loot. When police burst through the door, the thieves were reportedly shocked, wondering how on earth they'd been found so quickly. One officer later said, "They stole the one item designed specifically to be found." You couldn't script a more ironic ending. And here's what makes this story even more poetic. They didn't just steal a tracker. They also stole training equipment, fake valuables used by police recruits to practice theft recovery. In other words, they'd fallen for a setup that wasn't even a setup. When the case hit the news, people couldn't stop laughing. Because this wasn't just a dumb crime. It was an accidental self-arrest. Think about it. You plan the crime, execute the plan, escape, and then realize the thing you stole snitched on you automatically. In a way, it's the perfect metaphor for modern stupidity, a world where humans can outsmart systems, but not their own lack of common sense. And you know what's truly wild? These weren't first-time offenders. Some of them had previous charges for theft of high-tech equipment. It's almost poetic. They finally got their hands on advanced tech. They just didn't realize it was working against them. So next time you hear someone say criminal mastermind, remember, some of them can't even steal without tagging themselves. Humans really are whack. On our sixth story today, sometimes people will do anything to avoid going to work. Lie about being sick, fake a flat tire, pretend their car broke down. But one man took, I don't feel like going in today, to a level of insanity that deserves its own chapter in the book of dumb decisions. The man who faked his own kidnapping to get a day off work. It happened in Arizona. A 19-year-old man named Brandon decided he was tired of his job. He needed a break. But instead of calling in sick, he called in kidnapped. One morning, police found him on the side of the road, hands tied behind his back with a belt, a bandana stuffed in his mouth. He told officers he'd been kidnapped by two masked men, taken in a car, and left unconscious in the desert. It sounded terrifying. For a moment, it seemed like a serious case, until detectives started digging. They checked security cameras. No sign of a kidnapping. They checked traffic footage. No matching vehicles. Then they asked a few simple questions, and Brandon S.'s story started to crumble like a cookie in hot coffee. Finally, after hours of questioning, he broke down and confessed. There were no kidnappers, no car, no masked men. He made the whole thing up because he didn't want to go to work that day. The police report literally said, the man admitted he staged the kidnapping to avoid his job. That's it. No deeper motive. No drama. Just pure laziness wrapped in duct tape. The best part? His boss found out, not because Brandon told him, but because it made the news. Local teen fakes abduction to skip work. He was later charged with making a false report and obstructing law enforcement. All for what? A single day off. And the irony? He got plenty of days off after that, courtesy of the criminal justice system. You have to wonder what was going through his mind when he was tying himself up. Did he think, this is genius? Or maybe he truly believed he'd crafted the perfect excuse. Either way, it's a reminder that sometimes the hardest part of adult life isn't the job itself, it's showing up. On our seventh story today, in the age of social media, people will do almost anything for attention. They'll stage pranks, fake luxury lifestyles, and broadcast their lives 24/7 just to gain a few more likes. But sometimes, that hunger for attention backfires spectacularly. The influencer who accidentally confessed to a crime during a live stream. It happened in China, where live streaming has become a massive cultural phenomenon. Millions of viewers, thousands of influencers, and intense competition for fame. One man, a small-time content creator, wanted to grow his following fast. He'd been posting vlogs, travel clips, and jokes, but none of it was working. So, during one of his live streams, he decided to get real with his audience. He started telling a story about a wild night from his past. He laughed as he described how, years ago, he and a few friends had broken into a store for fun, taking drinks and snacks before running away. At first, the chat thought he was joking, but as he went into detail, mentioning the exact location, the store name, and even how they'd escaped, some viewers started recognizing the case. And then it clicked. He had just confessed, live on camera, to an unsolved burglary. Within hours, clips of the live stream spread across social media. Viewers started tagging local police, who reopened the cold case. because the influencer had basically given them a full confession with evidence. Police showed up at his door the next day. He tried to deny it at first, claiming it was just a story for entertainment. But the details matched the old police report perfectly, right down to the broken back window and the missing crate of soda bottles. He was arrested live on stream, his camera still rolling as officers entered his home. That clip, ironically, became the most viewed video he ever made. He got what he always wanted, viral fame. But it came with handcuffs. And that's the strange poetry of the internet age. People chasing visibility so desperately, they forget that some stories aren't meant to be told. They say the internet never forgets. And in his case, it didn't forgive either. So, if you ever feel tempted to overshare online, remember this man. The influencer who became famous for confessing to his own crime. On our 8th story today, every bad driver has an excuse. The brakes failed, the road was slippery, that other car came out of nowhere. But sometimes, those excuses cross into supernatural territory. The driver who blamed a ghost for crashing his car. This eerie and ridiculous story comes from Singapore, where a young man was involved in a late-night car accident. His vehicle had swerved off the road, hit a barrier, and flipped onto its side. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But when police arrived, the driver looked pale, shaken, and absolutely convinced of one thing. It wasn't my fault. A ghost made me crash. According to his statement, he'd been driving down an empty stretch of highway when he saw a woman standing in the middle of the road, wearing white. He said she appeared out of nowhere. He slammed on the brakes, swerved to avoid hitting her, and that's when he lost control. But here's the twist. When officers checked dashcam footage, there was no one on the road. Not a single shadow, reflection, or figure. Just him, panicking and veering off for no visible reason. The story went viral, with half the internet calling it proof of ghosts, and the other half calling it proof of stupidity. When police dug deeper, they discovered the haunting might have been caused by something far less supernatural: exhaustion and alcohol. The man had reportedly been drinking earlier that evening, and combined with fatigue, his brain probably created a hallucination, one that felt real in the moment. But instead of admitting fault, he doubled down, telling reporters later, "I know what I saw. She was real. She wanted me to crash." The public loved it. Memes, TikToks, even short horror films popped up using his quote. He became known as the ghost driver. But here's the thing about human nature. When we mess up, we'll believe almost anything, as long as it lets us avoid guilt. A ghost, a curse, bad luck, fate. In his case, the spirit wasn't on the road. It was in his own head. And maybe that's the scariest ghost of all. The one that convinces us we never wrong. Because sometimes, the dumbest excuses are the ones we actually believe. On our 9th story today, there are bad customer service moments. And then there's the story of the person who took, "I want to speak to the manager," to an entirely new criminal level. The person who called 911 because their fast food order was wrong. This happened in several different places, but one of the most infamous cases took place in Florida, because of course it did. A woman pulled into a McDonald's drive-thru one night, ordered a 10-piece chicken McNuggets, paid for it, and drove off. Moments later, she realized she'd been shorted. They gave her only 9. Now, a normal person might ask for a refund. Or, walk inside and politely explain the mistake. But this woman, she called 911. And not just once, 3 times. Her emergency? They won't give me my chicken McNuggets. The dispatcher, probably wondering if they'd entered the twilight zone, tried to explain that this wasn't a life-threatening situation. But she wasn't having it. She wanted justice, fast food justice. When police finally arrived, the restaurant staff looked completely bewildered. The woman was standing outside, phone in hand, demanding that officers force the employees to fix her order. The officers, trying to keep straight faces, had to explain that misuse of 911 is a crime. She was charged with misuse of emergency services, all over one missing nugget. But she's not alone in this kind of stupidity. There have been reports of people calling emergency lines because their pizza delivery was too cold, their sandwich didn't have enough pickles, or, my favorite, someone once called 911 to complain that their drug dealer sold them bad weed. It's funny until you realize that while dispatchers are handling nonsense like this, real emergencies, heart attacks, car crashes, fires, might be waiting on hold. It's one of those stories that perfectly sums up why this series exists. Humans are emotional creatures, and sometimes we care more about a missing nugget than actual survival. But hey, priorities, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just fast food that gets cold, it's also common sense. On our 10th story today, it's a story that's equal parts desperate, funny, and tragically human. The tale of the man who spent his life savings on a billboard begging for a girlfriend. Meet Mark Rofe, a British man in his early 30s who decided that online dating wasn't working for him. Tired of ghosting, rejection, and endless swipes, Mark thought, why not go big? Literally. So he spent his entire life savings, around £2,000, about $2,500, to put his face on a giant billboard. The sign read, "Date Mark. This could be the sign you've been waiting for." And yes, it included his photo, smiling awkwardly, along with a link to a website he built, datingmark.co.uk. Within hours, it went viral. People laughed, shared, and commented things like, "This is either genius or insanity." Bro skipped Tinder and went straight to Times Square marketing. But here's the thing, it worked kind of. Mark received thousands of applications from women all over the world, and quite a few prank messages too. So what did he do? He doubled down. He started a crowdfunding campaign to put up more billboards across the UK for other single people who wanted to try his approach. Yes, this man accidentally created the world's first billboard dating agency. And while it sounds ridiculous, it's also kind of sweet. In a world where most people hide behind filters and fake bios, he decided to put himself, flaws, hope, and all, on full display for the entire world to see. It's easy to call it desperate, but it's also honest. Because let's be real, everyone just wants to be seen. Mark later said in an interview, "If love won't find me, I'll advertise for it." And that line right there, that's humanity in a nutshell. Wild, whack, and heartbreakingly sincere. So, before we wrap up today's episode, tell us in the comments which of these stories fascinated you the most or made you question how wild humans can get. And as always, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is in your country. It's always amazing to see how far the Humans Are Whack family reaches across the world. And if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends and family. Because next episode, we're diving even deeper into the strange, hilarious, and downright unbelievable things humans do. Because one thing's for sure, humans will never stop finding new ways to surprise and confuse the universe. And that wraps up episode 7 of Humans Are Whack, another deep dive into the absurd, the hilarious, and the head-shakingly dumb things we humans do. From faking kidnappings for a day off work to spending life savings on a billboard just to find love, these stories remind us that sometimes the line between brilliance and foolishness is paper thin. But now it's your turn. Speech Balloon, tell us in the comments. Which of these stories had you laughing, shocked, or wondering what on earth people are thinking? Also, drop where you re-watching from, and tell us what time it is in your country right now. It's always incredible seeing just how far the Humans Are Whack family stretches across the world. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the madness. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family who enjoy true stories that are stranger than fiction. Because trust me, the next episode, it's even crazier, more unbelievable, more whack. This is Humans Are Whack, where we remind you every week that the wildest species on Earth is us. See you in the next one.